So what's the best way to listen to employees? Actually, before I start, is there a clicker I can use to advance the slides? That's actually a really important question. And I thought I would give you the answer to that question at the beginning of the presentation rather than making you wait 12 minutes. So it's pretty profound. Thank you. You might want to write this down. And that is, it depends. I realize that's not a very satisfactory answer, not a very satisfying answer, that is. And for those of you who are tasked with designing your employee survey program, it's not a very helpful answer. But there really is no simple answer to this question. However, there are a lot of strong opinions in the survey world, as you see. The annual census survey is dead. So that's an interesting one. In general, it's considered to be a dinosaur. It's considered to be way too cumbersome, and really nobody's doing them anymore. Surveys should also be short, and they should be administered frequently. And engagement is the most important metric. So if you think about all these opinions, and there's no shortage of advice that you get from HR blogs and HR magazines on these areas, you have to ask yourself, is this actually the case? So let's explore. Let's start first with the annual engagement survey being dead. So it's been accused of being too big, too slow, and too much of a single point in time. And yet, at Perceptyx, 85% of the clients that we work with still do an annual census survey. And you're probably thinking, okay, who are these companies? They must not be very well informed. They're not on the cutting edge. And yet, that's not true. So Apple, Microsoft, Boeing, Johnson & Johnson, all of these organizations and many more world-class organizations still do an annual census survey. And if you think about it for a moment, what process in HR touches every employee, provides insights to every manager and leader across every business unit, across every demographic? When it's a well-designed and well-executed census survey, you have wide and deep data that you can draw from, which is ideal for people analytics. So let's explore I guess we identified as a myth, but the opinion that all surveys should be short. Anything greater than 10 questions is too long. So I think one reason why that has sort of grown as sort of a thought leadership perspective is that annual census surveys have been poorly executed. So it takes weeks or months to get survey results. It takes an additional weeks or months to package the results and provide them to managers and leaders to be able to take action. But there's another reason, and that is we don't want to burden our employees with a lot of questions. So who in this room, in your organization, believes that employees are your most important asset? And yet we don't want to hear from you. So with technology now being able to provide a survey that can, of 35 to 40 questions that you can answer in less than 10 minutes, if you believe your employees are important, and they may be frustrated when you say, no, I only want to ask you 4 questions. So I would invite you to consider that a survey that has questions across a number of topics that are important to the business is an important part of your survey strategy. So when it comes to surveys, one size fits all. So it's best to do them quarterly, best to do them monthly, it's best to do them biannually. So there are schools of thought that say there is one best approach. And yet, every organization is unique. You have your own history. You have your own industry. You have your own organizational culture. You have your own unique business requirements. You may be local, you may be global. So it seems that having a single survey strategy probably does not make sense to meet the needs of every organization out there. And I'd make the argument that any survey program should start by looking at the business strategy. What are the important business objectives that you need, to build an HR strategy around? And then how does your survey strategy serve your HR strategy? Employee surveys over the last 5 to 10 years have progressively become more and more focused on engagement. So I mentioned before that there's a lot of thought leaders that think that engagement is the most important metric. So we have almost an obsessive quality in senior leaders on how is their engagement score doing this year relative to last year, and am I going to do better next year? And I would say that we've sort of lost the notion of what we mean by engagement. We've been focusing on engagement as if it's a noun. We'd like to think of focusing on engagement as a verb. So what is it going to take to create an engaging work environment? So we have a concept that we call the engagement engine. And really what it boils down to is this. If you look at the elements of an engaging workplace that lead to organizational performance, so for example, we want to improve customer satisfaction, or we want to increase efficiency inside the organization, or we want to improve quality, whatever it is that's important in your organization at this time. And then you look to see how you can create engagement and behaviors in the organization that will improve organizational performance and lead to greater organizational outcomes. But perhaps more importantly, we also want to focus on employees and make sure that they're getting their needs met, because every employee has a different need. So for example, for me, it might be career development is most important. I want to get a promotion. For somebody else, they want to be more engaged in the decision-making process. And yet for somebody else, they want to be more creative. They want to be more innovative. Or it may be as straightforward as, I want to make enough money to be able to support my family. So all of these different types of sort of individual success, a well-designed survey based on your business strategy and the needs of your people will help you to increase the anticipation that your people have of being successful, which is, we think, the key to employee engagement. So continuous listening. So certainly, again, if you read the HR blogs and the HR magazines, there's much more of a focus now on continuous listening, but there's really no one single definition of what continuous listening means. So it really is as simple as it's a combination of different survey types for different purposes, administered at different parts or different points in time across the business cycle. The important thing is that whether it's a combination of census surveys, onboarding, exit surveys, pulse surveys, the surveys themselves need to be anchored in supporting the business strategy and the HR strategy. And the sort of the punchline behind all of this is to provide data and insights to managers at every level in the organization to be able to make good database decisions. Very quick example of what an example continuous listening program will look like. And I will say this is not a prescription, just an example. So in this particular organization, there is a census survey each April. There are a number of sample pulse surveys throughout the year, some that are focused on following up to the census survey itself. For example, in areas, hotspots that have been identified that are of particular concern in the organization. We may have some more sort of special purpose type pulse surveys on, for example, total rewards or maybe improving collaboration. This is supported by a series of ongoing polls, event-based surveys based on a particular, for example, if you have a town hall and you want to see how the message is resonating, you can do a survey. If you've just done an organizational restructure, you can see how your people feel about the restructure. So the big challenge here is this. How do you stitch together the data, this really valuable data that you've collected across all these surveys in such a way that it paints a cohesive, coherent picture of the work environment that your employees are experiencing right now? So whether you have a census survey or a series of pulse surveys, a well-designed survey approach is the engine of HR analytics. And a well-designed survey can cover multiple topics. So for example, we can look at the downstream impact of our leadership development program. We can look to see if there's any challenges in retaining our high potentials. We can look to see if we're actually creating an inclusive environment. As a matter of fact, any issue in the organization that's important to meet your business strategy, in a well-designed survey, we can gather the data that you need and provide insights to your leaders to make better decisions. So, where to start? I think I probably mentioned strategy many times in the last 10 minutes or so. So that's where I would encourage you to start. Making sure that you understand your business strategy, you've developed an HR strategy that helps to drive that business strategy, and then your survey strategy will be in support of your HR strategy. You take a look at the data elements that you need. So what are you going to get or gather in your survey program, combined with your HRIS data, combined with as many business metrics as you can put into your system to really give you a deeper, stronger sense of full people analytics. And then you'll take a look at who's going to be using the survey data. Typically your HR team, but you have different folks in HR. You've got your analytics team, you have HR business partners, you have HR COE specialists, so OD, L&D, Comp, and Ben. What do they need? What do your managers need? From frontline all the way up to senior leaders. And when you think about that, you have to think about how simple do you have to make it, for example, for frontline managers? How robust do you want to make the analytics experience, for example, with your analytics team? Once you've done those three things, then you look to choose your methodology. Now, in most organizations, it seems that they jump straight to choosing the methodology without really taking into account strategy and how you're going to use the data. So I'll go back to my original question. What's the best way to listen to your employees? It depends. Thank you.